Hi everybody, this is Bastiaan and this is a game I played against a friend of mine, Alesh, using the Russian game. And I was playing black. Play starts with e4, e5, knight f3 and knight to f6, signaling the Russian game for Petrov's defense. Play continues with pawn, knight takes pawn. At this point, black typically plays pawn to d6 or queen to e7 to chase the knight away first before recapturing. d6 was played, knight f3. Now I take on the pawn on e4 and bishop to c4, immediately putting pressure on the f7 square. d5 to kick back the bishop, bishop h3, and bishop c5 with the same idea to put pressure on the f2 square. So white castles, black castles, and d4, attacking the bishop. Bishop falls back to b6, knight b to d2, and knight to c6. Knight to c6 had two attackers on the pawn on d4, c3 to defend, bishop to g4 with a pin on the queen, and queen to c2. And queen to c2 adds two attackers on the knight on e4. So instead of defending at this point, I decide to exchange, and knight takes knight. And Alesh recaptures with the bishop. Bishop takes d2. And during the game I made a comment that I believed that this move was a mistake, because this knight here is needed to defend f3, because if he doesn't, white will end up with double pawns. So knight recapture would have been more logical, and engines like Fritz agree, but to my amazement engines like Ripka don't agree and think that recapturing with queen or bishop is stronger. Anyway, bishop takes d2 was played, so I take on the knight, and white ends up with double pawns and an exposed king side. And now I play f5, and this move serves a few purposes. First, I can play a rook lift with a check on the king. But second, my actual goal is to push the pawn to f4, which will block the two double pawns, but also block this diagonal of the bishop. And if the diagonal is blocked, I can bring in the queen on f5 with check, followed by a rook lift perhaps. So king h1, white gets off the open half-open file. And now I cannot play a4 just yet to block the diagonal, because I'm not sure if my opponent would have spotted it, but it gives him a nice opportunity with queen e4, which cannot be recaptured because of the pin on the king. Queen e4 as a double attack on this pawn, and a double attack on this pawn, and it's a strong move, and I'm not taking any chances that white might have spotted it. So if I can, for instance, play knight to e7 to add more protection to this pawn is still hanging, but white has even stronger moves like queen e6 with a check. So I'm giving him way too much counterplay. So I didn't play a4 at this point. Instead, I need to get rid of this bishop first. Knight a5, and the bishop is trapped on b3. After the exchange, I feel more comfortable in playing f4. So white starts a counterattack of his own with rook to g1, with his rook on the half open file. Take, and white recaptures with the queen, so he doesn't double up on the pawns. However, because of this queen is becoming a little bit out of play. After c6, we can see that the queen is somewhat becoming trapped in a cage. It won't be easy for the queen to get out of it. Bishop h6, so white is increasing the pressure on the g7 square, and I'm in need of defense, so I have to play rook to f7. So I can't play g6 because of the attack on the rook. Rook to g2, and white is planning on doubling up on the rooks. And now queen h4, putting my own queen into the attack and attacking white's bishop. The pawn on f2 is already defended. Bishop to g5, queen falls back on h5, and I'm having a strategy of developing the bishop on c7 to create an attack on h2. So rook a to g1, and white doubles up his rooks on the g file, but in doing so his king is now completely locked in on h1. Also, white is abandoning the double pawns to continue with a strong attack, but now simply queen takes pawn, and white's attack has been neutralized because of this pin on the king, and black cannot move his rook anymore, nor can he move his king. And in order to continue with this attack, white needs to get rid of black's queen, and there are a few ways of doing so. c4 doesn't really work because of queen takes queen, pawn takes, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes, bishop takes, attack on pawn, pawn b3, and then simply g6, and white's attack is blocked, and I'm up 2 pawns, and I can promote on the a file or b file. So that's not good enough. So white has the right idea, but tries something else, and plays queen to b4 with the idea of freeing the queen. Rook goes to e8, and queen d6, and this is actually a huge mistake because white didn't consider the strength of bishop to c7, and it's actually not so easy for the queen to escape the trap. Now there's no way for the queen to move to safety other than just retreating into the pawn chain. So queen to b4 has to be played, or a3 even, because there are no safe places on the active board for the queen. And this has allowed the development of my bishop, which is needed into the final attack. So I continue with the bishop sacrifice. Bishop takes. Of course, rook cannot recapture because of the pin, so king recaptures. Queen h5 check, forcing king to g3, and this allows me to recapture the bishop. So I'm up a pawn, and I'm having a strong attack. In fact, this is already made. So the king moves to f3, queen h5 check, king f4, rook to e4 check, king g3, and finally the pawn move f4 checkmate with both of white rooks and the queen out of play. So that was my game using the Petrov defense against Alesh, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.